Brothers and sisters, put this record down. Take my advice, because we are bad news. We are Columbia House Party. Jake, what's going on, man?
That was a great intro. I love that. I like when it's like, I feel like that not every first lyric of every album is going to work for a nice little flow. But
Working
that
so
one,
far.
that one's right there. We're getting into the groove, getting some ideas, I think.
One thing that I wanted to, before we move forward, something I thought of after, something for the listeners on Spotify or maybe on actual cassette tapes or mix CDs. We have referred to this as our living mixtape as we go.
That's true.
We need to pick a song off each album that we did for the mixtape.
You're right. That's a great idea.
I don't know. We'll see how the mixtape unfolds. Once we're up to like 15, 16 tracks.
And like mixtape sequencing is a talent.
We're going to talk.
We'll have to do it.
Yeah, that is an episode in itself, as is album track sequencing, which I have very
Me too.
hot sports adjacent takes on.
See, that's funny because mine are all like theater adjacent. I've always looked at like album sequencing very similar to how you would sequence a musical. And that's why that's when we were talking about Pinkerton and the last track being Butterfly. When I was younger, it always pissed me off because I was like, no, your last song has to be like a big showstopper, not this like little acoustic ballad kind of thing. So I also have thoughts on it.
Yeah, I won't get into too much specifics, but it's the batting order theory of
hit your best players first.
If within some structuring within that.
Okay.
But the first half certainly has to be better. And what an album to talk about today.
To talk about the first half.
To talk about the first half of the album being better than the second half. We talked about My Chemical Romance, who were they were one of a few quintessential bands of the 2003 to 2006 boom of pop punk and emo. Another side of that coin was Fall Out Boy. I can't tell if that was the actual album copy of Sugar We're Going Down or the karaoke rendition of it at Kramer's Pub and Grill from our very first guest, Andrew Zuber. Zoobs, what's going on, buddy?
A pleasure to be here, guys.
A pleasure to have you. The very first guest on Columbia House Party.
Feels good.
Who else could it be?
I was in the lobby waiting already, so you just called me. No. Touched. I'm honored.
Does it feel weird for you that I'm in your seat and you're in the seat I'm normally in when I come on for Sportsfeld?
It feels good. It's a good vantage point. You get to make eye contact with both people very easily.
See, I thought you'd be more upset about me and you. I thought that
I like it.
We had a Fall Out Boys evening out with your girlfriend.
Territorial
situation here. Yeah,
I like it.
We are. Who better to have on to talk about Fall Out Boy?
Yes.
Than you.
Not to brag.
It is one of the albums, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, you are an authority on several albums, but only those specific albums.
Yeah.
What is it? We have Tell All Your Friends, Morbid Stuff.
Yeah.
Today's album, and one karaoke hit from Bare Naked Ladies.
Well, like a compilation of the Bare Naked Ladies' best hits.
Okay.
Throughout
So like
their albums.
that one greatest hits CD.
Yeah, pretty much. They basically nailed it when it came to putting out a
greatest
greatest
hits
hits.
CD is really good.
They did it as you should, where it was just like, here's the best songs as well as the ones that were the biggest commercial successes.
And then there's this album.
Then there is this album.
The other side of that emo adjacent coin that My Chemical Romance was on and that we covered, they were different, but they were no less dorkier. They were armed with swooping bangs, eyeliner, popped collars, which I didn't remember, and then they had some popped collars.
They really have that Josh Charles in Wet Hot American Summer with the two polo shirts at once.
Yeah, bad sideburns. Trucker hats, a lot of trucker hats.
A lot of trucker hats.
A lot of trucker hats. Not dissimilar from Weezer either, showing that geekdom can be commercially successful. The album we're talking about today, holds legacy status in the pop punk genre. Some might even say it's the only album. Today, we're going down, talking about Fall Out Boy's 2005 album, From Under the Cork Tree. Your favorite album, Zoobs.
Here's the thing, and I don't want to talk about inside baseball, is drop a bit that I was doing on Twitter.
Right.
But it just started as I awarded it Album of the Year one year, and then just continued doing it.
Yeah, it was 2014 or something.
So not to pull it too far back, but it isn't the album I've listened to most of my life. But for the sake of the fact that, ever since the bit started, it's had to become. Whether I liked it or not, it's taken on life.
That's true.
So I have, not a bit, but once every quarter or so, I will tweet out what were your favorite albums of the last couple of months.
Right.
Because I like to, it's a good way to find new music, and it's a good way to just interact with people, and every single time. And it's gotten to the point now where Zoobs doesn't even respond with From Under the Cork Tree. I think the last time you did the Simpsons meme of everyone turning to look at Bart waiting for the line.
Say the line, Bart.
But that being said, it is you in jest, you go back and listen to it. This is bangers.
Yeah.
It's the reason I pick it.
It's interesting what you were just saying about them being I was thinking about this listening to it this week preparing for this, them being the two sides of the same coin with My Chemical Romance. There does seem to be in the sense of 2003 to 2006 emo and pop punk is all very much the same genre. There's 4 kinds of mid 2000s emo and pop punk, and one you sound like My Chemical Romance, one and dress like My Chemical Romance, one you look and dress and sound like Fall Out Boy. Then there was Panic at the Disco, and then there was Taking Back Sunday, brand new style. And it's funny to me how it's the same but kind of totally different.
Yeah, and I feel like all of those albums at that moment together kind of created this handbook for sad boys and unrequited love, and not just boys. It's not to gender it.
I mean, it was a lot.
It was a lot of sad boys. This handbook for how do you deal with unrequited love? How do you make yourself feel a little bit better about it? How do you get comfortable whining about it on MSN all the time? This album, From Under the Cork Tree, was kind of important in that pop punk explosion because of Fall Out Boy's crossover appeal. It was one of the first albums from this genre to be really, really commercially successful. And then their subsequent pivot away from that type of music and that scene is interesting in what it did to Fall Out Boy, obviously, and then fans of Fall Out Boy and where they went from there. Zoobs, why is this album it for you? Why did you want to come on and discuss this one with us?
Well, I think it sort of resonates with me because there's a central theme to this album, and you sort of even say it in the beginning, the very first lyrics in the album, they came right out and say it, where, Jake, you talked about the 4 corners, the little styles. I think what makes Fall Out Boy so successful and so funny, for me, was they were always sort of in on a joke with you, where they're don't listen to this, it's stupid. That's literally how they open the album. And there's a bit of and I've always leaned on this myself, is if you point out how seriously you take yourself as a joke, it allows you to take yourself really seriously, because now there's no limit. You can go over the top, you can ham it up. So they do sort of have this, you're right about dealing with heartbreak, but there's also the other side of it is anytime they have a girl in this album, they're so shitty to her. And they're just yeah, I suck. I'm a shitty guy. Sorry. That's sort of, they're sort of winking at the whole genre in all these guys take themselves too seriously and all they do is whine, and then they get the girl and they're shitty. It's sort of very aware of itself. I think Say Anything was sort of the same way.
Yeah. Say anything was more I'm trash, trash, nothing matters, I'm trash. Yeah. Also, you're trash.
Also, it's hilarious.
Yeah, but it sort of represented that. To me, that was always the connection to it, was it was always aware of itself. There's never more than 5 minutes where they're not mentioning that they sell records out of this, and they're we're making money off of you. It's blatant, but it's done in a humorous way that sort of points it out.
I wonder if, and forgive me if this is in your notes,
no, it's cool, man.
I know that there was that was sort of how the band dynamic between Pete Wentz and Patrick Stump worked. Patrick Stump was I don't want to be in this fucking band.
Right.
I don't like this music. And then they got successful. It was okay, fine, I guess.
And then to Blake's point about the pivot, why not more success and more money?
Yeah.
If you're already doing it in a sort of fake way.
You can hear, unlike the other bands who did not have obviously anywhere near the same commercial success that Fall Out Boy has and did. But you can hear in this album, even in their quote unquote pop punk ear tunes, it's still so tailored to go right to arena rock.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the sound is not that different from what they became.
It's not.
Which is striking.
Sugar We're Going Down, I've looked up their recent set lists a couple times just to see if they play this stuff, and they don't. They play Dance Dance and Sugar We're Going Down, but Sugar We're Going Down slots in seamlessly to any of their like light 'em up arena hits.
Now, they didn't, it took them a little bit to get to this, even though this was only their second album. So, 2003, they released Take This to Your Grave. They had a few EPs before, Fall Out Boy's Evening Out with Your Girlfriend, which is the precursor to Zoob's, our favorite genre joke. If you and your girl are cool. If you and your girl are cool, why is she waiting for an autograph after the Fall Out Boy show? So interestingly enough, at this point, at the point of Take This to Your Grave, Fall Out Boy had already signed with Island Records, but that album was released on Fueled by Ramen. Fueled by Ramen, obviously a big indie pop punk album. It was the first ever, at least Island believed at the time, it was the first ever kind of incubator deal. It's like, it's very NBA, like we're going to sign you to the G League, and if you're good, then we have your NBA rights. Basically, Island thought, well, we'll let them release this on the smaller album that fits that genre, and if they're good, we'll upstream them really easily, and we'll be in a position to take advantage of that.
Does Pete Wentz run Fueled by Ramen? Or
He
he's
does not.
involved?
He has another one. It's called DCD2.
Oh,
I think it's
okay.
called. Him and Stump have their own label. There's not much on it anymore. It's like them and Panic at the Disco and
Sure.
Travie McCoy, who it was Gym Class Heroes and now he's his own thing. But there's not much on it anymore. So yeah, that obviously that process was really interesting. They recorded this one, or Take This to Your Grave, pretty quickly. There was this weird, dynamic between Stump and Wentz, where Stump, like you said, Jake, didn't really want to be in a pop punk band. He was originally a drummer in a grindcore band. Pete Wentz was also like hardcore into the Chicago hardcore and metalcore scene, which you can occasionally hear on the first two albums, but then they erase all of that out of there. So as they were writing, initially Stump wrote all the lyrics and all the music, but he took the lyrics very not seriously, very, to your point, Zoob's like, oh, like, who cares? It's not that serious. And Wentz was more of the, no, we have to take this really seriously because that'll let us poke fun at it, but also, like, we can be serious and introspective about it. So making Take This to Your Grave was a real stress for the band. That process, Stump didn't like the process of, I'm going to write a song, Wentz is going to strip the lyrics out, and then I've got to fit Wentz's lyrics back in. That was how they made the best songs, but it was a difficult process. Too many revisions, too long a process. Stump told Independent, it scares me sometimes watching him being Wentz. The 2 seconds you're not with that dude, he's made 30 decisions that are going to affect us for the rest of the year. And then you get songs like
It's kind of exactly who I think Pete Wentz is.
Yeah, and you see hints on Take This to Your Grave of what's coming on From Under the Cork Tree. One of those being Grand Theft Auto, Where's Your Boy?
Where is your boy tonight? I hope he is a gentleman. Maybe he won't find out what I know. You were the last good thing about this part of town. When I wake up, I'm willing to take my chances on who I forget that you hate him more than you notice. I wrote this for you. Should it him? I could be him. I could be an accident, but I'm still trying. And there's more than I can say for him. Where is your boy tonight? I hope he's a gentleman. Maybe he won't find out what I know. You were the last good thing about this part of town. Where is your boy tonight? I hope he's a gentleman. Maybe he won't find out what I know. You were the last good thing about this part of town.
So as you might expect for a debut pop punk album, not a lot of commercial success for Take This to Your Grave. Fall Out Boy did get a quick cameo on the 04 Warped Tour, though, and they were critically considered, and quote, a subcultural touchstone, deceptively smart pop punk masterpiece that ushered in a vibrant scene resurgence. That's from Alternative Press at the time. So even before From Under the Cork Tree, people are like, okay, this could be a thing if this next album hits, and they're going to go to Island. So From Under the Cork Tree moved away from Sean O'Keefe as a producer. Sean O'Keefe has done like Real Friends, Plain White Tees, Hawthorne. He's done some Motion City soundtrack stuff as well. They moved to Neil Averon, who has done Yellow Card, Newfound Glory, Everclear. Like a clear Island wants them working with a more commercially
I know how to make pop rock
viable
songs.
producer.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to work with them initially at all. He said, and quote, "Come back to me if they get some better songs," is what he told Kerrang in like a retrospective on From Under the Cork
Guess
Tree.
what, motherfucker?
Yeah. And then he ended up producing their 2 albums after this one too. So
He was
obviously,
like, oh, they sold a bunch of records? Okay.
Yes.
That's fine.
so Take This to Your Grave shows enough to be worth upstreaming, to use the term Island Records was thinking. They put them up at corporate housing in Burbank, California. They gave them the actual time and resources to make the album properly. They changed the songwriting process so it was a little more straightforward and less we're going to kill each other. Things did not go as smoothly as you might think. This is From Under the Cork Tree. After this. All right, so I have a little fun fact for our boy the Zoobs.
Okay.
All right.
Did you know that John Cena is tangentially related to Fall Out Boy?
What?
What?
So From Under the Cork Tree, the name, is based on a 1936 children's book called The Story of Ferdinand. That's a story about a bull who would rather sniff
Yeah,
flowers
yeah.
under a cork tree
oh,
than
I know
participate
who
in
Ferdinand.
fights.
Oh, I know who Ferdinand is.
Yes.
I feel like
It was made
I know
into
this
a
one.
movie in 2017, The Story of Ferdinand, starring John Cena as the voice of Ferdinand.
Oh, I know that movie. Yeah.
This is the list of voice actors on the movie is insane.
Very long list for a movie that I forgot existed until you just brought it up.
That's reality now.
That's also true. Yeah, it's too much content.
Yeah, the Ferdinand
Unlike
actually
this.
comes up again in the album just because. So Ferdinand the story is like a key plot point in a movie called Dance Girl Dance from 940. Dance Girl Dance may have had an influence on one of the other songs on the album. I'm not sure.
Hard to believe.
So this songwriting process, they go all lyrics by Wentz this time around, all music by Stump. Stump once said he can write lyrics, but he can't write Fall Out Boy lyrics.
I think that's a not incorrect distinction. Like when you hear a Fall Out Boy song, you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like a Fall Out Boy.
Of course,
for
yeah.
sure.
So despite the more streamlined process, was not much cleaner. Right before they went into record, they ditched 10 songs and wrote 8 new ones. One of those new ones was Sugar We're Going Down.
Wow.
Island did not like that song. They thought the chorus was too wordy. They wanted them to ditch it entirely because the radio wouldn't play it. Eventually they made them change the title for the song as well. They obviously gave in on the song being on the album and being a single. Island, close miss, not
Yeah,
having
really.
Sugar We're Going Down. One of the more weird and interesting things about this album is all the bizarre song titles.
Of course.
The first one on the album, our lawyer made us change the name of the song so we wouldn't get sued. True story. That song was originally called My Name is David Ruffin and These Are the Temptations, and they were worried about being sued. The song titles on the album is kind of a key feature. A lot of them reference pop culture. There are movie quotes from Casablanca, Dirty Dancing, 25th Hour, a bunch of stuff. Wentz was doing the songwriting, and while Stump wrote the music, there are still a couple occasions where it's like, oh yeah, Pete Wentz was definitely like in the hardcore scene. There is a spoken word kind of poem at the end of Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying.
So
Which,
corny.
like, the Used did the same thing at the start of I'm a Fake.
Yeah.
And, like, for a long time, I thought it was just, like, they had some spoken word poem and they both used the same guy. But it's not.
I feel like that, if you want to date this album, that spoken word bridge, it's like, oh, 2004, 2005. Like, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I think even not knowing that, but like listening to the album, you know that's like they let Pete do this. Like,
Yeah, totally, yeah,
there's
totally.
no mistaking that the whole band was like, yeah. Then we have you do spoken word. It's like obviously he was like put it in, and they were like, yeah,
Well, it's like-
you wrote the entire thing.
To that point, like the strongest part about Fall Out Boy's music is and has always been Patrick Stump's voice.
Right.
And so whenever there's like a Pete bit, it's very obvious when it's a Pete bit.
Yeah, the Patrick Stump voice thing, I made the mistake. I made the comment earlier about Zoobs doing a great karaoke rendition of Sugar We're Going Down. I did that
in the
in
wrong key.
Koreatown while sick one time.
Oof.
And it was just like, I was not terribly ill. I was obviously good enough to be going out and like having a beer and doing karaoke, but my voice was not there. And oh boy, did that suck. I'm not a talented singer generally,
No,
but
not me
Stump
either.
gets to some places that you better be warmed up and ready for.
He's got a crazy voice. Like maybe we'll talk about a bit about his solo album sometime, but like his singing on that is pretty good.
The singing on that is not super good. On I Slept With Someone and Fall Out Boy, there is a brief glimmer of screamo.
I found the cure to growing older, and you're the only place that feels like home. Just so you know, you'll never know, and some secrets weren't meant to be told, but I found the cure to growing older. That's so savage, fulfillment, so many of the way you are. Can't cover it up, can't cover it up. That's so savage, fulfillment, so many of the way you are. Can't cover it up, can't cover it up, no. Someone old, no one new. Feeling borrowed, always blue. Someone old, no one new. Feeling borrowed, always blue. Someone old, no one new. Feeling borrowed, always blue. Someone old, no one new. Always borrowed, always blue. I found a cure to growing older. Down so selfish and fulfillment, so fitting of the way you are. Can't cover it up, can't cover it up.
Man, they should have got the guy who does the screamo Sportsfeld
They should have.
opening music to do that part of the song. So obviously still a little bit of push-pull on this album, figuring out who they are. But for the most part, by the time From Under the Cork Tree comes around, Fall Out Boy is who they are. That did not... So Stump referred to the songwriting process as much more natural and fun. Wentz had a much tougher time with it. Obviously, the lyrical content of this, there is some self-deprecation, there's some relationship stuff as well. But this is how Wentz described his songwriting for the album. The anxiety and depression that goes along with looking at your own life, it's part of the cycle of feeling okay. There's an honesty in our music, and I think people appreciate it. We have always written what we are feeling. Well, that was a little tough for him. During recording, in a parking lot in Chicago, Wentz took a shitload of Ativan. He said after, it's been described in the media as a suicide attempt. He said, I didn't really think about whether I slept or died. Basically, he couldn't handle the anxiety of being on the cusp and being racked with self-doubt. He's used, the wave metaphor before of like, you don't know if you're going to catch the wave or the wave's going to catch you. He had a really difficult time. The song 7 Minutes in Heaven is about him overdosing or over-medicating on Ativan, hence the parenthetical title, Ativan Halen.
Slipping my way out of this one with anyone who lie down. I'll be stuck fixated on one star when the world is crashing down. I keep telling myself, not to get told, but you got me living. Keep telling myself, I'm not the desperate type. Sitting at dances on the wall, trying to forget everything that isn't you. I'm not going home alone, 'cause I don't do too well on my own. Keep telling myself, I keep telling myself, I'm not the desperate type. You got me looking in your eyes. Sitting at dances on the wall, trying to forget everything that isn't you. I'm not going home alone, 'cause I don't do too well on my own.
So, a little bit of ironic, I guess, controversy around this one, quietly. As deeply personal as Wentz's lyrics are at times, they settled out of court with Wesley Isold of American Nightmare. 3 of the tracks on the album apparently lifted from his poetry and from his lyrics without credit.
For American Nightmare?
So he is credited as a co-writer on 3 of these songs.
That's
that was the
wild.
out-of-court settlement, yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. American Nightmare kick ass.
I mean, it's not cool.
No, but like
It's
I
pretty
mean,
shitty.
it's not a band that I would ever associate with being involved with a Fall Out Boy. Record.
Yeah, and some of it is apparently his poetry, not just the lyrical content. But yeah, very
Interesting.
for a deeply personal album
Yeah.
to lift a couple of those things.
And like to that point, I think this has also to do with what we were kind of talking before about, them being very tongue in cheek at all times. I never got, like, one of the reasons I think I liked Fall Out Boy, but I never was in like heavily into Fall Out Boy was like my Black Parade is a literal third person like concept album in a character. And I find it so much easier to connect emotionally to than anything Fall Out Boy does. Even like, and I think that might be the tongue-in-cheek nature of the lyrics and like the arena rock of the music, but there's just not, to me, there's nothing there emotionally for me to
just
grab onto.
frame it though as it is third person because Stump is singing Wentz's lyrics.
I guess so. But like, I don't know, I find it hard to emotionally grab onto Fall Out Boy.
So Wentz did not feel the same as you, and he thought that most of their audience would not feel the same. So in addition to when this album came out, he was at the Fall Out Boy in general, but especially Pete Wentz was at the very cutting edge of like leveraging MySpace and the online communities that were popping up around this kind of music. He published an online journal, being open about going through therapy for the first time after his suicide scare, about being dumped, about his depression before and during the album, saying it's not good enough to just give somebody a song. Basically, his point was everyone can just download music so easily. There's so much of it. If you want to connect with people, you have to give them more than just a song. Now, the lyrical content probably made it easy for shitty high school boys or shitty college boys to hang on to as well. Zoobs, you touched on this a little bit earlier. The lyrical theme of the album is a lot more pointing the finger at yourself. It's more introspective and less reactive than Take This to Your Grave, which is more typical pop punk, how could you do this to me kind of lyrics. Wentz's point is basically if the same shit keeps happening to you, you probably need to examine yourself. There are lyrics like, so wear me like a locket around your throat, I'll weigh you down, I'll watch you choke, you look so good in blue, or why don't you show me the little bit of spine you've been saving for his mattress, I only want sympathy in the form of you crawling into bed with me. It's like, it's very like, I realize how shitty this is, and I suck, and I just said shitty like 8 times in that stretch, but
it's that old, you meet an asshole in the morning, you meet an asshole, you meet assholes all day, you're the asshole kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like dump your shitty boyfriend so I can be your shitty boyfriend.
Yeah, why are you with him if he treats you poorly?
Right.
I would treat you poorly too.
Exactly
It's funny
right.
you mentioned the like connection and popularity that they had with sort of the, I don't want to use the term bro, but like the
Bro adjacent.
bro adjacent white males. And I was thinking about, not to keep tying back to My Chemical Romance, but it's just been thinking about it.
They're very related. It makes sense to contrast them.
I've been wondering what a My Chemical Romance audience looks like. And I genuinely have no idea. I don't think it'd be any kids. Like, I think it would just be, like when we went to see Green Day a few years ago, you and I, Blake, it was very clear that there was like segments. There was like a small segment that had just wanted to hear like Dookie. There was a small segment or a large segment that just wanted to hear American Idiot. And then there was a very small segment that wanted to hear the new stuff.
I don't know what you're talking about. I never took a bus to Hamilton to see Green Day.
And against me, it's okay.
Don't put in the paper that I was stranded in Hamilton because Green Day played too long a set.
We got home. It's fine.
That was while I was watching Maddox, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. That's Zoobs' dog, for anyone who doesn't know.
But it was it was a very segmented crowd, both in age and interest and time. And Green Day is a little different just because they've been around for almost 30 years now. So they have that longevity thing. But with Fall Out Boy, I imagine now it's different because they're a pop band and they're an arena rock band. But I imagine that the crowd segmentation at a Fall Out Boy show were their set lists more balanced throughout their career. I wonder how their audience looks compared to what My Chemical Romance audience looks like. I would assume there's a lot more
Posers at the My Chemical Romance show.
I was actually going to go, I was not posers, but like, I would assume the Fall Out Boy crowd is a lot more what you would expect from like any like massively selling commercial band.
Yeah. I guess, Jake, sort of to go back to your point about the emotional connection and not being able to connect to My Chemical Romance because it's like a detached third person thing, right? For me, it's easier to connect to like, what a douchebag thing that is to do.
Right.
And like we talked about this a little bit before, but like the My Chemical Romance is the perfect thing where like growing up, nobody I know admitted to being a My Chemical Romance
I
fan.
didn't admit to it. I was a
Right.
huge fan and I didn't admit to it.
So it's so weird for me to look at this now in the future, and people who at the time weren't My Chemical Romance fans be like, I can't wait to go see My Chemical Romance. It'll be a more legitimate audience when like you are basically admitting yourself that you weren't a legitimate fan when it was happening.
Totally, absolutely. And which is funny, especially when you consider all the other music I was listening to at that time. Like,
Right.
At that time, my favorite band was the Alkaline Trio, who are like
You'd be like, what a poser.
two steps away from My Chemical Romance, if that.
It is funny how it is all related though. They are like, it is the two of the same coin. It's
Yeah.
like it's like having those same instincts, and like, because this is like theater. It's like, it's almost like theater
Totally.
rock as well. It's like theater kid music. Chemical Romance in like being proud and wearing your theater makeup around school, or like being embarrassed that you're in the theater group and being like, oh, theater's for like losers, while you like are sneaking into drama class.
Yeah, like what makes me laugh the most is like I had on the wall in my bedroom in high school, I had a poster of AFI.
Yeah.
Who dressed and makeup and looked identical to My Chemical, but like they were cool.
so funny.
They were cool, and like My Chemical
Yeah.
Romance was like, oh no, fuck no.
Good
no
Charlotte
way.
was the same way. Like nobody liked Good Charlotte growing up where I grew up, but they were somehow everyone secretly loves Good Charlotte. Like they were popular enough, and My Chemical Romance was the same way.
Yeah.
Where he said it debuted at number 2, and it's like,
right. Like it's crazy.
who are these people? It's funny how that works.
The only thing I like, the only thing I really appreciate Good Charlotte for is the theme song to that one
Undergrads.
TV. There it is.
The
I
Clinton.
was thinking
It's a great song.
I was thinking
It's a great song.
Undeclared, and I was like, it's definitely not Undeclared.
No,
but it's something like
Undergrad. That was a
yeah.
great song. That's
That
the only song
kicks
I like.
ass.
That song does get cast.
Anyway, to your point, both of your points about why Fall Out Boy, or at least your point, Zoobs, why it was maybe more reachable for a normal person. Pete Wentz told Independent in 2006, we are ordinary boys in an extraordinary position. That can be inspiring for other ordinary people. Personally, I think that gave other ordinary people leeway to
Be shitty.
yeah, like obviously
Ordinary boys that do things like date Ashley Simpson.
Shitty guys.
Yes. The point, I think, of writing songs this way is to highlight that it's not the best way, and you appreciate that, and you
Right.
would like to be better. I think a lot of people take it as like glamorized.
Look how
It's
funny
like,
it
no,
is.
that's how everyone is. A lyric like "I'll burn their city down to show you the lights."
Yeah.
It's like, well, why don't I just become a disaster just to show you how much I like you?
Exactly.
And
right.
I think it's fun, like that quote of like ordinary boys and extras. That ties directly back to the whole Weezer thing of just like we're just nerdy guys who like Dungeons and Dragons, but we're also the biggest rock stars on the planet.
Yeah.
We're just like you, except not at all.
Yeah, and I
which is
think-
which is natural, not a bad thing. It's just how it works when that's your
yeah. And what else?
marketing.
What else can you think about and write about at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something that, there's the element of we're gonna be self-deprecating about this, and that makes it easier. But also, this is like the whole album is just dripping in sarcasm, and this is where the song titles come in. And like, you can't have this album be this album without the ridiculous song titles. Rolling Stone in 2005 said, "In the business of emotional bloodletting, a little misdirection can make a big difference." And I think that's a great way to put it. Of just you have to kind of layer it with this sophomoric stuff to like one, make it digestible and marketable, but two, also like to cover that dissonance of like people are going to relate to this for bad reasons, and we're still going to sing about it.
It's also like at the time this came out, or not necessarily when it came out, but at the time this was blowing up, when emo and pop was blowing up, this was almost like a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways in the genre. Because like every fucking album at this time was like, I cut myself and bled your heart, and like my bullets are your heart, and the handgun is my feelings, or like that was like every single album in the genre. So this was a little more like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, Jake, I know you have like a lot of thoughts on, and Fall Out Boy isn't the best example of this, but almost like the cult of emo that we talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
We probably didn't talk about enough in the My Chemical Romance episode, of just like how there was this boom, and like everyone who liked it really, really identified as being a part of that. Fall Out Boy I now have like a quadrant in my mind that you've
Yeah.
painted for me with the 4 bands in each corner. And yeah, I guess like where would you guys fall within that? If that's like, if you've got a one axis of like Taking Back Sunday to Fall Out Boy and one of My Chemical Romance to Panic at the Disco, or I guess those shouldn't line up that way.
But those
yeah.
4, yeah.
I would be like in 100, like 50-50 between the Fall Out Boy and the Taking Back Sunday, and I wasn't into My Chemical Romance at all.
I was the guy who was like, who I tried really hard to like make it seem like I was outside of it. Where like I was saying, which is funny because the bands I liked were 100% also in it. But I was the guy who'd be like, oh, you're going to go see Fall Out Boy? That's fucking lame. I'm going to go watch like ska and Alkaline Trio. It's totally different though.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yes.
So I think
I'm
I'm
gonna take
probably
a bath and drop my radio in it. Way different than I'm gonna burn the city down
totally,
to show you the lights.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Their eyeliner is different from the other band's
Yes.
eyeliner.
Alkaline Trio's dyeing their hair a completely different color.
Yeah.
This is obviously different.
So like I think I was definitely in like just the music I listened to. I was closer to the like, or I was not even closer. What I listened to was more the Alkaline Trio AFI side of things, which I guess puts it closer to My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
With like a little bit of Taking Back Sunday in there, even though I wasn't really a Taking Back Sunday fan, but I think that's probably closer to my, if we're matricizing.
Yeah. These might not be the 4 best bands because Panic at the Disco and My Chemical Romance might be too close for the theatrical element.
Which is funny,
Like,
'cause I always
we
tied-
might need a different.
It's funny you say that.
fourth.
I always tied Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy.
Yeah,
closer
how can you
together.
not? They sort of instead of being a quadrant, they belong as like a connector between
Yeah.
between My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy. To me, they're like the exact marriage of it.
I think I agree.
Yeah, and like weirdly, it's just like the split is like, well, if you were a theater kid, you maybe lean
Yeah.
toward Panic at the Disco, and if you were a jock, maybe you lean a little bit toward Fall Out Boy,
100%.
which is hilarious given that Fall Out Boy eventually became like a frat rock band, given what they looked like at this time and
Totally.
what their audience was.
You hear this a lot about Ed Sheeran and about how it's kind of funny that a guy who looks like Ed Sheeran and is marketed like Ed Sheeran is this like international pop sex symbol. Fall Out Boy, very similar thing. Like you look at Fall Out Boy and you're like, these guys are a giant arena rock band? Okay.
Yeah, or even at the time, like the Sugar We're Going Down video, like that's Patrick Stump.
Yeah.
That's the lead singer of this band.
But listen to that voice though. Them pipes.
And that's another area where like we could draw the quadrant even musically, where like Patrick Stump and Brandon Urie are so ahead of most of that genre in terms of just. I mean, Gerard Way's in there. He's got some chops, but it's a different style.
He's in there within that quote unquote emo voice.
Right.
Patrick Stump has just a killer singing voice.
Yes, and Brandon Urie.
And Brandon Urie as well, yeah.
Love that guy.
They sound the same to me, which is not a insult, but like their vocal stylings are very. But again, that is unto itself another corner of the emo sound. Whereas like then it became like, okay, do you have the whiny like My Chemical Romance Take Back Sunday voice? Do you have this like very strong, like deep in your throat voice like Urie and Stump? Like it's interesting how it all sort of. And I'm sure this is common in all genres that become popular, but it's funny to look back on. Maybe it's just because it's a genre that I like a lot. How everything was the same but different, but also the same.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, this album was successful within the genre and is hugely responsible for pop punk, going where it did. I feel like a big part of what this album contributed to was, and especially because the music, to look at it now, at the time I would have fought you for saying that it's like just stadium rock, but it's so that it wasn't a hard pivot to that. So it's pretty, the barrier to entry with Fall Out Boy is not very high.
No.
So if you are firing up Madden 06 and you're trying to build the Jaguars roster around this unbelievable rookie running back, Maurice Jones-Drew, who you have on a dirt cheap contract, you've got all this cap space to build around him, and Dance Dance keeps playing over and over again?
She says she's no good with words, but I'm worse. But it started out a joke of a romantic stuck to my tongue. Way down with words too over dramatic. Tonight it's a can't get much worse. Worse, no one should ever feel like I'm 2 quarters and a heart down. And I don't wanna forget how your voice sounds. These words are all I have, so write them. So you need them just to get by. Dance, dance, we're falling apart to have time. Dance, dance, these are the lives you love to lead. Dance, this is the way they are. Dance, this is the way they love. Dance, this is the way they love. If they knew how misery loved me. Dance, 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 dance.
You're telling me you wouldn't pause signing depth running backs and trading them for third-round picks and then packaging multiple third-round picks together for second-round picks.
Right.
It's funny you bring
To
up Madden.
download the rest of the Fall Out Boy album and check them out.
I would love to. I'd love to do an episode of this one day. But like bands you discovered through sports video games, like they're
The
mid
MVP
2000s
Baseball 05
the mid 2000s.
soundtrack. The NBA Live 04 soundtrack with,
Yeah.
with the remixes of everything.
Madden. I think Blink and Green Day both debuted American Idiot and Feelin' This on a Madden soundtrack. So
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, there are some good sports. The MVP Baseball 05 soundtrack is the.
yes, that's very.
I mean, that game is just
game
like
kicks
one
ass.
of the
Yeah.
best ever.
Legendary.
But weirdly, like a lot of those songs, like Dance Dance, I'm biased because I was already a Fall Out Boy fan, but I feel like you would like check more of that out. Whereas MVP Baseball 05 was just like, yeah, this is a hot heat song.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool, I get it. I probably don't need more of these.
Yeah, I'll just skip this.
I've heard enough Dropkick Murphys by now.
Back to your point though about Fall Out Boy being accessible, so to speak, and easy to jump onto. For me, everything I'm saying about me in high school just makes me sound like an insufferable teen, and it's absolutely true.
It's fine, man.
But like,
You were famous. It's different.
yeah, but I wasn't. That's not why I was insufferable. But I was like, that's why I think I didn't get into Fall Out Boy back then, because I specifically remember being that guy who was like, oh, they're calling this shit punk now. Fuck that. Like, because again, I was a loser, but that was absolutely my reaction to it, because they were so accessible and radio ready and like pop, like just power pop music essentially.
And boy, did it work. Sugar We're Going Down, a breakthrough success as a single. The Phoenix New Times called it the most listened to emo track of all time, which I don't know if they're quantifying or just
Has to be
suggesting
true.
it,
It has
but
to be
it's
true.
Gotta be true.
It's extremely close, if not. The album debuted at number 2 on the US Billboard
Wild.
chart. It is still their best-selling and longest charting album, which is not really surprising even as they've gotten bigger. I reached number 1 in Canada.
Sure.
So a particular, maybe it's all the lakes we have to stare at.
You're welcome.
Triple platinum in the US, over 4 million copies sold worldwide. It was the 18th best-selling album of 2005
Wow.
in the US and the 43rd best-selling album in 2005 worldwide. Sugar, We're Going Down, and Dance Dance both hit the top 10 in the Billboard Hot 100. A Little Less 16 Candles was also a single. The album earned them a Best New Artist nominee in the 2006 Grammy Awards.
Wow.
Grammy nominated. They also got Grammy nominated for Mania for Best Rock Album.
Yeah, but that's because the Grammys don't know what rock albums are anymore.
Yes. Obviously, the reception here at the time was pretty good because it was doing so well. Rolling Stone listed it in its top 40 emo albums of all time. Brittany Spano said it, quote, changed the course of emo punk and brought the scene mainstream. There is also, it was named the 2005 Album of the Year, and then again in 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, all the way up to 2018 by Andrew Zuber.
Old Bare Naked Ladies songs almost beat it in 2017.
Damn.
Damn.
In general, it was kind of flooded with praise. They were given next big thing status or like big thing of the moment status. Critically, there were some mixed reviews. There seemed to be, like, from the critics who were swooping in and weren't as familiar with the genre, most of the reviews that I looked up focused on the interesting song titles or complained about the saturation in the scene because so many of these bands were at least starting to get some. There were obviously the music critics you might like more were a little more open to it. Johnny Loftus of All Music said the first 5 tracks are relentless. We're going to talk about the track with the track order shortly. The aftermath, though, was not quite what you'd expect from an album that was this successful. Because of the success, it allowed them to do some side projects and things like that. They did, though, want to get back in the studio almost immediately to capitalize on the momentum. So they worked quickly to produce Infinity on High. It was a departure in sound, more rock, a little bit of like funk and R&B dropped in there. Billboard called them increasingly accessible pop tunes, which I think, when you look at where they are now from Under the Cork Tree, Infinity on High makes an awful lot of sense as a transition. Wasn't received as well, but it debuted at number 1 on the US Billboard.
Jay-Z on that album?
Is that the one, or is that the one after?
I don't know. They're all to be honest, the funny thing about Fall Out Boy is everything after from Under the Cork Tree, to me, just blends together completely.
I will say 2 of the singles from Infinity on High
Those
were very
singles-
good.
those singles
This Ain't a
are
Scene,
great.
It's a Goddamn Arms Race, and Thanks for the Memories are
Great
songs that
Great songs.
they fit on From Under the Cork Tree, and they would hold up well on that album.
Yeah.
The rest of it, though, was getting kind of pop rock from there. Wentz and Stump started their own label, which we mentioned earlier, DCD2. They had Panic, Cobra Starship, Gym Class Heroes. Tyga was on it for a little bit, which is which is interesting. Wentz had his own little moment where even though Patrick Stump was the lead singer, Wentz was kind of the front-facing person of the band. He was the most outgoing. He did a lot of the interviews. He created his own label. He created his own clothing line. He wrote a graphic novel. He had nudes get leaked.
Nice.
You know, he checked off all of
He's the celebrity.
He had the celebrity relationship. He was the guy.
Yeah. Things after Infinity on High got a little rough for a little while. The sessions got difficult again. Stump and Wentz were the other band members felt like maybe a little too controlling. The band wasn't collaborative at all because it was Wentz doing the lyrics and Stump doing the music. Folie à Deux was tough to make. It didn't do as well either. And then the band had to take a break after. Stump had put on a ton of weight. Andy Hurley went into depression. Wentz was going through a divorce with Ashley Simpson. So they eventually take a break. The Reformation has been pretty good, largely arena rock.
It's pretty successful. I would
Yeah.
say.
Let's just make a bunch of money is probably what happened after that.
That's fine. Yeah, this has been such a hard look. From Under the Cork Tree was hard to make, but we figured it out and we got there. Infinity High was pretty good. If we're just gonna make money, things got really hard, and we're just gonna make money from here, and that's about where they went. That takes us back to that Johnny Loftus comment from AllMusic.
That's what I call like turning 30. You're just like, well, hold on a minute, fellas.
We can make a bunch of money doing this.
Let's not worry too much about the artistic expression. It's not that big a deal.
Integrity's fun when you're 20.
Exactly right.
The first 5 tracks are relentless. That Johnny Loftus quote. We're gonna talk about those first 5 tracks after this. All right, not to keep us too much on football here, guys, but January 9th, 2016, Carson Wentz
Oh, yeah.
leads the Bisons to a 5th straight FCS title. He runs for 2 touchdowns, throws for a 3rd, named Division I AA championship game most outstanding player. Led to a series of Carson Wentz, Pete Wentz jokes on Twitter. There was a joke thread that may or may not have involved a couple of us. December 19th, 2017, the original tweet that started the thread has since been deleted. But there was a thread where the three of us, I think
couldn't be me.
multiple people threatened to
Oh,
beat us up. Not that they could, because we're obviously pop punk
everyone,
guys. We're very
everyone
tough.
was like, "Please stop this."
Yeah, no one's gonna beat up 3 pop punk kids. Come
Yeah.
on. People were not happy at the thread of fake Fall Out Boy song titles
This went on for hours.
that we were trading around. It went on for a really long time. We talked about the importance of the Fall Out Boy song titles From Under the Cork Tree. They fit the theme of the album. They helped the reception of the album. They were important. Fall Out Boy has continued with that sometimes, less and less important to the actual music and the actual concepts of the album. They have 108 songs. I went through them all. 50 of them are weird From Under the Cork Tree-ish titles.
Okay.
That seems about right.
Yeah.
Let's see if you guys can guess which ones are real
Oh, God.
and which ones are made up.
Okay.
It's not a side effect of the cocaine. I'm thinking it must be love.
That's
That's
Fall Out
fake.
Boy.
That's fake.
It's real.
That's Fall Out Boy.
They all sound fake. Is the thing.
We waited this long. What's 5 more minutes?
That's fake.
That's fake.
Yeah, that was one of yours.
Yeah. Tell me my own tweet to my face. They're like children to me.
They're hours. They're years ago. Hours ago. They're years ago.
I remember all my babies.
I seek you, but you don't seek me.
That's fake.
That's fake for sure.
That sounds like that's a Jake.
If it's ICQ reference, it probably is. Yeah.
The art of keeping up disappearances.
Ooh,
Well,
that's
that
Fall Out
sounds
Boy.
real.
That's real.
Yeah.
Damn, you guys are doing it better at this than I thought.
You didn't know my special category would come out. Tweets that I've been involved in.
There's no filter for this heartbreak.
Ooh,
that's fake.
That's fake.
Yeah, that was one of mine. Damn.
We were very internet focused.
Yeah.
We were very internet focused. And we waited this long. What's 5 more minutes? We were waiting in the wing place for that.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
That's good. That was actually
Very selective memory.
that night. of Wings, and Jake, you weren't there.
I was
but
not.
I honestly feel like that was like a pre-episode because we just dominated the
Yeah.
conversation with the other guys that just talked about like funeral for a friend for 2 hours over
Concerts
Wings.
I had been to that I was like, I was not there to see the opening band, and I was like, oof,
Time to go.
this is not for me.
A Fall Out Boy spreadsheet crashed my Excel. that was.
They should use that.
So
That's
I
good.
copy and pasted the Wikipedia list of all their albums, but I didn't paste special because it was formatting all weird. So with all the like hyperlinks and everything, it just crashed my Excel. You guys are doing better than this at this than I thought. So we will we'll do 2 more.
Okay.
Snitches and talkers get stitches and walkers.
That's a real song. I know
one.
that
I
song.
can't believe that's a real song.
I know, but I think that's the album they had Lil Wayne on it somewhere, because it was Jay-Z on Infinity on High. He was on the opening thing. It's Patrick Stump ass spoken word poetry from Jay-Z.
He's following up his Linkin Park.
All right,
That's true. It was in that area. He was like, "Fuck it, I can make money off of this."
yeah. All right, let's just wrap it there because we got
He'll
to
become a billionaire by not playing with Sad Boys.
Absolutely right.
All right, let's get into some of the songs we know are real Fall Out
right.
Boy titles for sure, and let's rank them.
Sure.
Let's do it.
From Under the Cork Tree has 13 tracks. It also has a very good bonus track called Music or the Misery that we won't include here. I like that song a lot. It would probably not crack my top 3 anyway, but let's, what do you guys have as the number 1 song on From Under the Cork Tree?
I slept with someone in Fall Out Boy, and all I got was this stupid song written about me.
Interesting.
I love that song. Listening to it, and I know the album starts out really hard, and I think part of what makes this song stands out is it comes after 2 of my least favorite songs that sort of blend
Yeah.
together, where it's sort of like,
I noticed I was listening on the way here, and I was also like,
oh, here
I'm
it is.
I was like, I know there's another song on this album
Yes.
that I like.
So
Where is it?
I
And
think
there
it stands out because, as that review said, and as we've talked about, it really comes out of the gate really hard. Like the rest of my top 5 are from the top of the album. I think it's obvious, and it's like the ultimate song title for a Fall Out Boy song.
Yeah.
it references Fall Out Boy. It's like
It's also like a popular phrase.
and it's like it very well encompasses like it's serious and not serious at the same time. It's very aware of itself. It's classic Fall Out Boy, and even as you said it, like it gets the screamo a little bit. I
Yeah.
think that one's the perfect encapsulation of like of Pete and Patrick. Really, like they both sort of nail it there.
It's a good song. I had it third.
Yeah. I have that.
Fair.
I think I have it second, actually.
Got to be in the top 3.
Yeah, I have it second.
I just third. What do you have first, Jake?
I have. I don't even have not sure of the entire title. Oh yeah, of all the gin joints in the world.
Yes,
I have it number 1.
had that number 2.
I have that number 2.
Yeah,
Really?
it's a beauty. It's
a great
number
song.
2 on the album as well.
You only hold me up like this, 'cause you don't know who I really am. Sometimes I just want to know what it's like to be you. We're making out inside crash cars, we're slipping through all the memories. I used to waste my time dreaming of being alive. Now I only wish I'm dreaming of you. Turn off the lights and turn off the shyness, 'cause all the moves make up for the silence. And the way you'll make us stays, like I'll never be the
Of all the Gin George should be the opener.
Yeah. What's your number 1, Blake?
Sugar, we're going down. It's way too good a track to not.
It's fair.
It's what I call it's a Big Mac thing, where it's like it's the Big Mac at McDonald's. You can rank
Yeah.
other things above it, you can like them more, but you have to admit that the Big Mac is the Big Mac.
I
Yes,
would be
yeah, totally.
surprised if there were 5 songs that I'd listen to more in my life.
To your earlier point, it is the most listened to, or at least it's definitely the most popular mid 2000s emo song of all time.
Music fans can't be wrong.
Absolutely.
En
Never.
masse.
Never.
No good music has ever gotten. No bad music has ever gotten popular.
But I see the thing is I disagree with that somewhat. And
I'm being sarcastic.
no, I know, no, but like I think that's a popular theory that like, oh, it's popular, so it sucks. Like there's a reason that some things are pop. Like
That's right.
it's a perfectly constructed pop song.
It's really
Like
good.
it just everything about like we could break it down technically for days, but like even just in the intro, that the opening guitar riff over the main chords is just like, it both sounds exactly like the genre it is, but it's also such an inviting little lick, and it's like, oh, okay, now it's
And it's tight.
yeah, and it's just like
It goes one course too long if you're doing karaoke.
Yes.
Yep.
And it introduces them in a way that like it has some of the lyrics like nobody else uses the word mausoleum in a song.
Yeah.
It's like it's very much like
Panic at the Disco would
My
definitely
only-
use
Right?
mausoleum.
My
but
only problem with it is I have always and will always hate the line "a loaded god complex cock and pull it."
Yeah.
I hate that
It's a-
line.
it's a bad line.
so much.
Loaded Favre complex was one of the Carson Wentz tweets. We're idiots. By the way, as I was looking for those tweets, because the things I had to search to
Oh,
try to
of course.
find that
Yeah,
thread of
of
tweets,
course.
I didn't realize I made my Sportsfeld debut with you guys in April 2014 on
Yeah,
episode 10.
that checks out.
That's crazy. I didn't realize I come on that
Sports
early.
has been going since 2014, which is
That's-
also
not really, but yes.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a gap.
No, it's been going since. It's been going since, just not consistently.
Even a killer rock band like Fall Out Boy takes a 5-year gap once in a while.
Right?
And I don't know, one of them put on some weight. I've probably done the same.
We used to
during
go- we
a
used to-
gap from a project.
Yeah.
we had to go on hiatus to retool to make the hi-fi stuff.
In the what happened to Fall Out Boy in the time between poor Patrick Stump, other people were dealing with real stuff.
But,
It's like
like-
he got sort of fat.
but
It's
no,
like,
but-
hey,
He turned 30.
But it was like
do you want?
cited as a reason
For
that
sure.
he had to like take a break or like withdraw a little bit. Was like he had to get that under control.
That's fair.
poor Patrick Stump.
Oh, did you give your top 3?
No, so mine would be all the gin joints at number 1. I slept with someone in Fall Out Boy at number 2, and EXO at number 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I have. I slept with someone, a Fall Out Boy, all the gin joints, and then I sort of had Sugar We're Going Down as like it insists upon itself.
Yeah.
But I also had EXO right there.
Okay. I had Sugar We're Going Down of all the gin joints, and I slept with someone in Fall Out Boy.
We
So
nailed it.
we're all around
We're
the
kind
same
of in
top
the same.
4.
Yeah.
And then Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner is a good song. I hate the way it starts coming out of Sugar We're
I
Going Down.
agree.
I don't like. I kind of would flip Sugar We're Going Down and Dance Dance. I think on the track listing.
I really like how Gin Joints goes into Dance Dance.
That's fair.
The drum brings it in really well, but I know what you mean.
I don't like the way Sugar We're Going Down goes into Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner, even though that's a fine song.
I know what you mean because I do think because Dance Dance is such a banger and Sugar We're Going Down is just like a great pop tune, I feel like you need sort of in your baseball lineup idea, Dance Dance is your cleanup hitter.
Yes.
And Sugar Going Down is your like number 3, just gets on base.
Yeah.
I
Can
don't
hit it out
want-
of the park if he needs.
I don't really like Dance Dance all that much.
Really?
I think it's just an overlisten thing, and the Madden
maybe.
soundtracks
The Madden
and the
thing is
commercials,
killer.
and you sort of
Weirdly,
like,
our lawyers doesn't get that because I was on NHL 06, but I maybe
Right.
just didn't play as much NHL 06 as I did Madden.
yeah, it's just one of those things where like none of us had it in our top 3, and I don't think any of us even came close to putting it in our top 3.
Yeah. So from Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner to I Slept with Someone in Fall Out Boy, there's just like there's not a lot of
Yeah,
meat there.
You're sort of like, I get it. This is Fall Out Boy songs.
yeah.
Individually, hearing them individually probably perk up, but listening to the full Fall Out Boy album,
Exactly.
there's like 15 minutes where you're like,
Yeah,
all right.
I agree.
Luckily, everything's fast. There's no long songs.
And again, it's a weirdly constructed album in the sense the final four, the first 4 and the last 4 are all great, and then the middle is just kind of like, all right.
This leads us, Jake, to picking one of these songs for the mixtape.
Has to be Sugar We're Going Down, doesn't it?
I think so.
Like it's not
See, I
even.
thought you were gonna pick Gin Joints here.
yeah, I think if
Gin
we
Joints
if
is
we
my
did a
f-
weighted average from the voting here,
It's
it would
Gin
be
Joints.
Gin Joints.
So,
But
maybe, so you know what? No, this isn't a best of. This is our thing. I'm saying
Yeah.
Gin Joints.
all right,
Who are you making this playlist
of all the
for?
Gin Joints in all the world,
Well, I'm sure we'll have plenty of other albums where like the song is going to be the song for the playlist.
yeah, but we don't need to do it every time.
No,
We didn't do El Scorcho or Welcome to the Black Parade.
that's true.
Also, people know those songs that they don't really need
Yeah.
them on a mixtape. Like if I was
That's right.
You never
not that I would ever have made someone a mix CD. In the,
No, but
in
you
the
don't
past,
make
or a
mix, you don't
Spotify
make mix
playlist.
CDs of the top 40 hits.
Exactly.
Everyone knows those songs.
Exactly. It's you like this thing? Well, let's use that as a gateway. Here's some other stuff you might.
Or if you're me, it's here's a lot of songs that mean a lot to me that you might not care about, but it says a lot about me. So learn about me. Here's what I like. Here's what I like.
Yeah, I go the other way. I go you told me you like that one thing. Well, here's a bunch of stuff you might also like, and then you'll remember that I gave you that song.
That's the whole arc of High Fidelity.
Yeah, and then when
he
you
learns
put-
his lesson by making a mixtape for her.
And then when you put it in your MSN status about some other guy, I can cry. Poor me. Poor me. The one thing, this is going to come up a lot in this genre. Some of these lyrics are not the best.
Yeah, I feel like the more we talk about mid 2000s pop punk and emo, the more this is going to come up because it was like Jesse Lacey being outed as being a shitty dude is the least surprising thing. Like even the guys who aren't necessarily shitty dudes, it was just sort of the tenet of how you wrote these songs.
Yeah,
and, it's
and
just,
like Chris Caraba, like the songs being so painful at some point that he had to like break down on stage. And it's just like there's going to be some of that weird, you were maybe a little too honest.
It's funny, like I was saying how I find Fall Out Boy keeps you at arm's length, and that's what I didn't necessarily connect with or like with them. But in retrospect, to exactly the purpose and exactly what you were talking about earlier, it does make me like them a little more because it got away from that. Like, I think a big criticism of emo at the time was it was so overwrought. It was just these sad boys taking themselves so goddamn serious to the point they were like crying on stage as they were singing their songs. And Fall Out Boy were like, we're gonna make a bunch of money off this, and we don't care.
Not
Like,
that, yeah, it's not that serious.
it's fun.
Gene Zambros.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Zoobs, thanks so much for coming on,
Thanks
man.
for coming on.
My
First
pleasure,
guest.
guys. That was tons of fun.
The first
First
guest.
guest.
The only album. You never have to listen again. We covered the one album.
Yeah, that's right.
The only album, the only guest.
But please,
But not the only guest.
Yeah, please do listen again.
Oh, hey, hey, please try the fish.